Welcome, everyone. This is the Auburn School Committee meeting, December 14th, 2022. This meeting of the Town of Auburn School Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, and extended through March 31st, 2023. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Would you please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Got a full house tonight. May, will you start us off?
The vision of the Auburn Public Schools is to educate and prepare students for the opportunities and challenges of a changing world. Our commitment: we will create, maintain, and support an environment that fosters a sense of belonging for all students in our schools, without regard for race, color, sex, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, homelessness, poverty, spoken language, and ability.
All right, thank you. Do we have citizens' comments tonight? No, seeing none. All right, we'll move on to special recognitions. Dr. Chamberlain?
No special recognitions tonight.
All righty. Seek approval of the minutes from November 30th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting on November 30th, 2022.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, there's a vote. And we do have Bella here tonight for the student rep report and Allie via Zoom. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Go ahead, Bella.
So a few weeks ago was the end of trimester one, which meant finals. Finals week went well. I think we're all relieved to have that over with now. We've been adjusting to our new schedules and classes, which can be an exciting change before winter break. In terms of extracurriculars, winter sports have kicked off their seasons. The second meet for math team was hosted again at Auburn High School. And there was a craft fair held this past weekend in the high school where vendors came and set up along the first and second floor. My mom went and she said it was extremely busy and had a great turnout, which was nice. The classroom doors have been decorated starting today. Homerooms worked together to set up a holiday-themed door to enter in a school-wide competition. And we've all been working hard to finish strong before winter break. There will be theme days next week to set a festive mood, like Winter Whiteout Day, Ugly Sweater Day, and Holiday Pajama Day.
Very good. So nice.
Sounds fun.
Hi, Allie.
The second trimester has been going well, and lots of students are here for winter break. And next week we have our Spirit Week and floor decorating, as she mentioned, and then also next Thursday, the marching band and choir will be traveling to all of the schools in the district. So just a lot of exciting things coming up. Also, in these last 2 weeks, the National Honor Society has had 2 drives in an effort to raise donations for children in the soldier. So we partnered with Auburn Youth and Family Services Adopted Family Drive. So we collected Christmas presents for the children and dropped those off there last Friday. And then we also sent care packages to the soldiers during the holiday season. Tomorrow morning we're holding a Rockets of the Week breakfast. I think Jasmine brought this up in a meeting last year, but it's an incentive that they initiated last year to recognize some different students for their contributions within the school. So tomorrow morning they have a breakfast honoring all of those students who were selected. Also this morning the Academic Quiz Team had its first meeting. So this is a club that hasn't been run since COVID freshman year, but earlier today they had their first competition against Northridge and David Crowdy and Auburn won. It's essentially just a club for trivia where they compete against other schools. And then for sports, hockey had its home opener last Thursday. That was the first game of the season. And basketball games have also begun this week, and indoor track has its first meeting this evening. That's about everything going on in sport right now.
Wow, that's a lot.
Very
That's
good.
a lot between the two. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Awesome.
Yes.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
No.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Allie.
Allie, thank you, Bella.
You're at the end here. You have 1 week left, so a week and a half left, so.
You can do it.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Allie.
Bella, you're welcome to stay for this funness, or you
will
can.
stay.
Oh, you are staying, okay.
Okay.
Great.
I love when you stay.
All right, I will turn it over to Dr. Chamberlain for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we've initiated this year, we're going to begin with our Spotlight on Students. This evening, we have students from the Auburn Middle School Student Council, along here with their advisor, Mrs. Schenkel, and they're going to come up and talk to us about their community service learning projects. We need their PowerPoint up. You'll come up to the podium, and we're gonna get that PowerPoint up so you can see it.
All right. So I'm Madeline LeBaume, president of Auburn Middle School AMS. So this is Vice President Tracy Trin, and these are the other members of the Student Council. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about what we've been doing and what we've been doing so far in Student Council. So Student Council is an organization. It's run by students and supervised by adults. The purpose of Student Council is to give students an opportunity to develop leadership by organizing and carrying out school activities and service projects. This year we have over 40 members from grades 6, 7, and 8. Our group meets every other week on Fridays after school. Tonight we are excited to share with you what we've been up to so far. So our Spirit Weeks and days at Auburn Middle School are a huge hit. We see so many kids and faculty participating, and we've done many different Spirit Days like Team Color Day, Hawaiian Day, Blue for Auburn Rockets, Red for Ray, and etc. We love seeing our school decked out and with spirit. We run our ideas by Mr. Desto and then find out the days and talk to our group about the Spirit Weeks or days. And our next Spirit Week is actually next week, so.
Right. So, every year we do a Thanksgiving food drive for Auburn Youth and Family Service. When our group does a food drive, we all get together to make posters for our homerooms and talk about how everything will work, so we can talk to our homerooms clearly and thoroughly. We are given a time span about a week and a half, or maybe 2 weeks, to get that food into school. Homes compete to see who can get the most amount of food. When the drive is over, our homeroom representatives bring down the boxes and make sure everyone is all set. Once the boxes are brought down to the guidance and teachers count and go through the boxes. Lastly, at the end of the day, the winning homeroom is announced and given a prize. This year, the winning homerooms receive donuts. The food is brought to AYFS by our school faculty members, and that's how we do our food drives, or really any drives in Auburn Middle. And after the AOFS Thanksgiving food drive, Student Council wanted to give a special thanks to all the homerooms who donated this year. We decided to give personalized thank you cards to show how grateful we were. We also wrote thank you cards to all the staff who contributed to purchasing gift cards for turkeys.
So AYFS Toy Drive is happening now. Each class I've been to has at least a few toys. We even made posters for the toy drive and hang them up in our classrooms. In addition to the toy drive, we are also having a raffle. The raffles are $1 for 2 tickets, and you have a chance to win a raffle basket. The money from the raffle goes directly to buying gift cards for older kids who need gifts at AYFS.
School dances are one of the most profitable areas for Student Council. We usually have 2 or 3 dances for Halloween, Valentine's Day, and sometime in the spring. We always run it by Mr. Desto first, just to make sure he gives us the all clear, which he usually does. The students, they're always super excited to have a dance. We get a really big turnout from all grades. And we sell snacks. Most of them are about $1 or $2, and all of the money we make, it goes back to our community and to future Student Council activities. And we're always up to something fun. In 2023, we have more giving back to our community planned and more exciting things on our horizon. Thank you.
Excellent.
Nicely done.
Wow.
Great.
Well, that was great.
Yeah.
Any comments from?
Through the chair, I just have one because you guys were just talking about the dances. Can I ask who DJs the dances? And I
actually don't know the answer to that.
I only asked because if you guys are aware, the high school has a DJ club. So there are kids who have joined the DJ club at the high school. So I know that they actually DJ the high school dances. Right, Bella? Am I correct on that? Yeah. So it might be something they would be interested to do for you guys.
That's awesome.
Of course.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I just love middle school spirit. It's always so great.
Yeah, you guys are great.
Mrs. Holloway was my 6th grade teacher.
I love middle school, every minute of it.
I'm right there with you. I love it. I don't enjoy the homework though, because I have one in middle school. The homework comes home and she's in 6th grade and I'm like, oh,
Oh, it couldn't be that bad.
I don't know, that math is pretty tough.
What grade are you guys in?
I'm in 7th grade. I'm in 8th grade. I'm in 7th grade.
I'm in 8th grade.
Nice. For the 8th graders, good luck in high school next year.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for stepping into, this is a real leadership role at Auburn Middle School. Seemingly, I can tell you're all setting a great example while bringing some wonderful things to the community, not only the Auburn community, but your school community, and we thank you for doing that. And hopefully, your commitment to service will continue as you get older. And I don't mean just high school either. So thank you all for what you do, and thank you for taking some time to come and tell us about what you're doing tonight.
Yeah, that was great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nicely done.
Good job, guys.
So you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. But if you would each come up and just come down the line, we'd like to shake your hands and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Good luck in school.
Great job, guys. Have a good holiday. Great job.
You.
Good luck.
Great
Nicely
job.
done.
Good
Thank
job.
you. Nicely done.
Thanks so much.
Great job. Nicely done.
job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
And thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you for
Aye,
coming.
thank you.
Thank all the parents, too.
Yeah, you guys make the magic happen, so. They do. Oh, I love it. All right. Oh, you're leaving now?
She's sneaking. She just wanted to see the fun stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. All right. Moving on to unfinished business.
Okay, Madam Chair, the first item here is the FY24 budget. As you know, we had presentations at the last meeting, and you were given a draft prior to that. The draft you received tonight is a little bit different. Mrs. Worsbicky and I have continued to work to see how we can best maximize the dollars we have and the support we need in the schools. And in doing so, we took another look at some of our revolving accounts, particularly our preschool revolving account. And with a little bit of emphasis and use of that revolving account, you have before you now a draft that represents a 4.35% increase. The previous draft was a 4.22 increase. This somewhat small adjustment, and I know we're not talking about a small amount of money, any percent is a big amount of money, but what it will allow us to do is keep 2 of the social workers that are currently being funded through our ESSER funding. And this has really come to light in the last several weeks. As we often know, as we head toward holidays, lots of folks have lots of emotional issues, and I will tell you that our students are struggling. The fallout from the pandemic is very much alive. We need these staff members more than we need nearly everyone else. They can't access learning if they can't be emotionally in a place that they can do that. And so I put it before you with this increase, and I hope that you'll understand that. I welcome your questions about that, but we just feel like we have to do this now. We have several other positions that continue to be funded by ESSER that I suspect next year, as we're in this process again, may come through to be put into the budget, because it's so critical right now that we can support the emotional well-being of our kids. So I'll welcome any questions you may have. We are not voting this evening. This is, again, just another evening to touch base on any budget questions you may have.
So through the chair, this keeps all social workers that we currently have.
It does. It just make sure 2 are in the budget and not any more funded by ESSER, so that we can make sure that we have them moving forward. Yes.
It's more than important. I think it's needed.
Through the chair, I agree with Megan. I think it's very important that we keep those social workers.
Through the chair, does this also include the two positions that Dr. Lopez asked for?
Those are still in here, yeah, and those are required by the IEPs of the students that
Okay.
we have. So yes, those are still here. This is the only change
Okay.
from the previous draft that you received.
Okay. Looks good.
Yeah.
Anything else? No, we're all set?
No.
Okay.
Again, Madam Chair, the next three items, it's the second read of three updated policies. I welcome any questions anyone may have on any of those. The typical policy for looking at policies requires 3 opportunities, so that the next one would be the action. But if anyone had any questions on, as the red highlighted changes in those 3 policies, non-discrimination, equal employment, and equal education.
No questions from me. Anybody else? Nope.
Nope.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Business.
Yes, moving on to new business. Do you want to, is this part of new business?
That's new
or-
business.
Okay,
That comes a
sorry.
little bit later. Yep.
Okay, all right. Yes, moving on to new business.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to change the order of things just a little bit. At this point, I put to you, we've had a request from the Select Board and the town to seek approval from you for the creation of 2 student positions on their board. The guidelines are noted in your agenda. Mr. Carpenter is here to talk about this a little bit, and I suspect will be willing to answer any questions we may have. You come up to the podium.
Nice to be on this side of the podium for a change. And I started my school career at Randall, so it's always nice to come back. Although you should have Miss Nims at the door, so that. So hopefully you have the brief email outlining what the Board of Selectmen voted on. And essentially, it's 2 positions, hopefully for incoming juniors and incoming seniors. They will need to have a work permit, and they are subject to the child labor laws. So that is something that the Attorney General's office and the federal government let us know about. The hope is that they would attend at minimum 12 meetings. That's about half of the meetings we have for the year. Obviously, they're welcome to attend all the meetings. And we have asked that they attend finance, zoning bylaw, and town meeting, or at least watch those meetings and report back to the board. I thought it would be, or the board thought that it would be a great opportunity to learn. We're hoping also that the election of these folks would be on the same day as the annual town election, to bring attention to, everybody knows when the president and the governor is getting elected, we know that we all have an annual election. It would be great to get and encourage students to think about local government, and it sounds like we have several people who might be, in a few years, looking for some of those slots. So with that, I'll take any questions you have, and any next steps that we need to pursue.
Through the chair, I have a couple questions, if I may. Hi, Dan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm
Good,
sorry
thank
Scott's
you.
under the weather.
Well, yeah, it's going through the house. The kids had it first, and now he's down. And he's worse than the kids. So I have a couple, always. So I have a couple questions, only because I actually love this idea. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for students to do, and as you can see, we had 2 representatives here for school committee. So a couple of my questions are, when would this begin? Would the first election take place in May? And the only reason I ask is because my concern with it starting immediately is that as of right now, you guys are a 4-person chair, and per the town charter, you guys should be a 5-person. So I'd like to see that happen after you guys do your elections and you guys are a 5-person board again. And then another question I had was, do you want me to just go through them real quick? Okay.
Go right ahead.
So my next question is, I see that it's one's for a junior, one's for a senior.
Correct.
That junior, if they get elected, would that
would that be a 2-year seat? No, so they would have to run again?
Exactly.
Okay. And then my only other question that I was wondering on was, have we talked to anyone at the high school to figure out who would be kind of running, I don't want to say program, but running this and heading it up and watching these 2 students and helping with the election within the school?
No.
Okay. Okay.
As for the timing, that will be up to the Board of Selectmen and whatever we can work out with, obviously, the school department. I'm not here after May, so the timing of it doesn't matter to me, just
I know.
as long as it happens.
Yeah.
So, you know,
So I'm wondering if, through the chair, if this is something we should kind of investigate more and put it all together before we vote to have it done? Or do we vote and then try and go through the high school and figure all of this out?
Through the chair, I personally, I know it's only 2 positions. I think it's a great idea. It did something similar, but I'd love to make sure Mr. DeLongchamp is on board with it and things
Yeah.
like that prior to voting personally.
Yeah, I agree too.
And I have a question. The 2 that act as our representatives to our board, how were they chosen? Does somebody pick them, or,
I think they're selected through the guidance office, honestly, at the high school.
so like volunteers and, so there's no big election or anything for them?
Not for our representatives, no.
And I can understand maybe for the select board, it could be the same way. I don't know why there has to be a big election.
Yeah.
Well, I think what the idea was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, is that because the selectmen are voted in, it's an opportunity for these students to kind of get a feel for how town politics would work. Am I on the right track?
that was the idea.
Okay.
Now, when I was a student at Auburn High, we did Student Government Day, and we had to, nobody selected us, we had to go to the other Mr. DeLongchamp, and we had to get signatures. And I think for me, it's important to bring attention to local elections and get students to start thinking, you know, we have a great program with studying the Constitution. Well, we have a Constitution in town as well. It's called our charter. And it would be great to get students starting to think of local things. And, you know, we had Mr. LaLiberte, who was, you know, many people, when he first ran for office, he's too young. I think he turned out to be probably one of the more active and engaged selectmen that I've served with, and I've seen in a number of years. So I would like to see, you know, let us encourage some students. They might be the next person. You know, a couple weeks ago, Craig Blaze came, and he's been off the board for 27 years, but he was a very young.
Yeah, that's the name from the past, yeah.
He was a very young member of the board as well at the time. So trying to get people to start thinking about local elections, what they can do, and I think Tristan is actually probably a good mentor, not that he's in town currently, but he brought forward a lot of new ideas, and the hope is that the students would also have some ideas that they would like to see and bring to the board, and the board could take that potentially to town meeting. So I think it's important that we have an election of their peers, much like us.
Through the chair, I also agree. I think we need to touch base with Mr. DeLongchamp and see if there is a teacher that's willing to like take this on, because this does seem like an election will be a lot of work to get the kids excited and things like that. So I just have a concern from the teacher standpoint that we need to have some buy-in from a staff member as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need a little more, it needs more footing than just voting on it tonight.
Yeah, but I think that it's
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think the process should, but I'd like to see it done so that way it's really beneficial for the select board, but also the 2 students who take it on. And my worry right now is that with the board sitting with 4 instead of 5 concerns me.
Well, also, I think we got to see what the level of interest is
Yeah.
in the student body as well before we get a teacher to go through all of the rigmarole of the election and everything.
The other thing is, don't they have to be at least 18?
Well, there won't be a voting member of the board any more than your representatives would be a
Okay.
voting member. It's a learning opportunity for both sides, at least as I view it. You know, we're going to learn from the students, and hopefully they'll learn something from us, good lessons. You know, I think this was the first step in the process, so absolutely I understand the board's wanting to go slowly and look at things. You know, just let me know what the next step is. If I can touch base with the superintendent and we can
I would say
Maybe keep
that's,
the
yeah,
conversation
go through
going.
Beth first, but are you looking for the students to present to the Board of Selectmen at the meetings that they attend, or?
For the finance, zoning, and town meeting, yes. So it's part of the learning experience. You know, finance, as you were just talking about the budget, and it's, you know, so that they can understand, at least in some fashion, how a budget is drafted. When new selectmen are elected, the town manager always has a onboarding session, so the students would attend that as well. So they would get an overview of town operations, which I think is great for all of us to, you know, was one of the best experiences I had when I was starting as a selectman, because even though I had prior experience, every job, as all of you know, is a little different, and we all learn in all the different positions that we hold in town, so.
And I have one more comment, if I may. As you saw here tonight, we don't keep the high school representatives for the whole meeting. We know they have
Homework.
homework
Sports and
and
everything.
sports and everything, so it's kind of like we get through with them and then say, you know, if you have things you need to do, you can, feel free to leave. So I can't imagine that they'd be expected to stay at a meeting until, however, I don't know how long the select board's meetings go, but they might need to leave earlier than,
Well, yes, especially with child labor laws. They can't be out on a school night past certain hours, and we don't want to get a fine, so.
that's right.
No, these are all great questions, and I can certainly bring them back to the board. Like I said, this is the first stop on the tour, so.
Okay.
You know, my hope is to get something in place before I leave in May, just because that's.
Yeah, I think also maybe a detailed description of what the expectations are of the students. So I do have hesitation having the student rep go before the finance committee asking for things on the school's behalf.
Is that what you meant by having them present, that they would be, no?
No,
Oh, okay.
So they wouldn't
No,
be
no, they're
serving
just-
as a
they're just-
representative of us?
no.
Okay.
It would be more about learning what your board does on a regular
Exactly.
basis.
And some of the other boards that
And some of the other
we appoint. So, you know, zoning bylaws are very important. Some of these kids are very interested, as all of you know, with green energy and everything else. Well, best thing to do is find out how that works. From zoning bylaw to town meeting, it's a wonderful way to understand how fraught it can be to get what we all think might be a simple process and see what comes of it, so. But yes, well.
All right, it sounds like a great opportunity, definitely. I think we
Yes.
just iron out a couple of those other kinks and move on, and Beth, you'll be in touch, or you
We
can.
will, and I'll get more information. I'll start working with Mr. DeLongchamp as well.
It seems like we have time.
Can we just include like a time frame for them in there? I know 12 meetings, but 12 meetings that are 2 hours long versus 12 meetings that I'm coming at the beginning would be helpful. I just think about some of the students who probably would want to attend are probably also in other things. So that they would know if they go forward.
Yeah, it's true. After-school sports and.
And allowing them to do Zoom attendance is great. That's a great idea as well. but-
Through the chair, it seems like we have time, especially if we want to do like an election kind of piece. So it seems like this is more for like a May, so we do have time, so.
Absolutely.
But I think it's a great idea.
I appreciate the support. We are not meeting until January, so I will share this with the town manager so she can share it with the other board members, and we'll see what answers we can get, and I'll be in touch, and everybody have a happy holiday.
Great, thank you.
holidays.
Cecilia, did you have a question?
I was just wondering if it could be approached like as a, like maybe potentially an internship or
Yeah.
some credits towards, you know,
yeah,
yeah.
like
I didn't know,
there's
because where they're
civics.
putting in the hours and the time and the commitment, whether it could be part of that, something like that.
Yeah, an
I just-
internship would be good for college credit, too.
Yeah, that's all I was thinking.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
It was very interesting, glad to see everybody. It's a little different than it was last time I was here with you sandwiched against the wall, so I'm
Oh,
glad you
yes.
have a little more space.
Good
night.
Thank you so
You
much,
too.
Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Happy holidays. All right.
Maybe we should, because it's action, to
Yeah, so
to
let's
get more information.
take a vote to table the action there, and,
I'll make- Oh, do we have to make a motion?
yeah, I think.
I'll make a motion to table the two student representative positions on the Auburn Select Board.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Excellent. And next on our agenda, we have our esteemed chief from the fire department, Chief Coleman, and Chief Lemon from the police department, to talk to you a little bit tonight about their proposal for a new public safety complex that they've been working on, a proposal to the town about getting that positioned here on this property where we sit now. So they're going to talk a little bit about what that means and what that might mean for us.
Come on up for your grilling.
Thank you.
Firing squad first.
Before we start, I just want to congratulate the school committee for the opportunity, the leadership opportunities that you're giving the kids. Just to kind of see, I was talking to the chief back there, just to see the kids here tonight presenting on what they have been working on in the schools, and then to see this presentation. It's great that these type of leadership opportunities are being created. It's also why we don't bring our staff here, because if they knew that there were like spirit weeks and Hawaiian shirt days, yeah, it would be chaos. It would be chaos at the fire station.
Can you
So.
imagine getting the firemen show up at your house and they all have Hawaiian shirts?
And their
But
flannels, too.
Yeah.
thank you for having us tonight, and we'll certainly, have the opportunity to have you ask some questions at the end. But I'll try to not go back the full 5 years that we've been working on this project, but try to summarize at least where we've sort of got to, at least within the last year. So the town manager appointed a public safety facilities review committee just about 5 years ago to evaluate the conditions of the existing fire stations, both on Auburn Street, here on West Street, as well as the police department. Shortly after that, an architectural firm was contracted, Tecton Architects, and they completed a review. And ultimately, the recommendation that came back based on building conditions and codes and a whole host of other things was that they were recommending a single public safety facility. So essentially, the initial recommendation was to close both fire stations, close the police station, and move everybody into one joint building. And that recommendation then launched us into a couple of years' worth of work, much of which, unfortunately, happened during COVID. This project was put on hold for about a year and a half during COVID. There was no movement there. And then it was slow to kind of get some wheels coming out of COVID, and really a good bulk of this project has really kind of accelerated since about June. From June to about now, we've probably made the most decisions that we've made in the last 5 years. So ultimately, again, long story short, the town went out on 2 different occasions trying to seek land that would be suitable, large enough for a single joint public safety facility. If any of you have been following this project or paying attention to this project, I've said publicly a couple of times, and it goes right back to the beginning of 5 years, I said from the very beginning that I was in support of a joint public safety facility, providing that it was not going to have a negative impact on response times from the fire department. As the police chief would tell you, the siting of a police station is not as critical because their officers are on patrol, they're responding from the roads. Fire stations, obviously, it's a little different. So we have excellent response times here in the town of Auburn. Our average response time right now is just a little over 3 minutes, greater than 95% of the time, and almost 5,000 emergency calls that we respond to. So I was not willing to trade that away for a location that was going to have an adverse effect on response times, which means that the circle gets really small when you're trying to find something in the center of the community. So we did go out to bid. We did a request for proposals on 2 different occasions, and that netted nothing. No companies or businesses came back and was interested in selling us any property. And at the end of the day, the size requirements that were going to be needed for that building, it really boiled down to 3 properties. It boiled down to the Sears Automotive building. It boiled down to the Shaw's and the Bed Bath & Beyond site, and the old Yankee Drummer, or as some may know it, the Lowe's property. Now it's the Langway property. That's the actual owner today. So none of those property owners wanted to sell. So we had to go back for a Plan B. The town administration, as well as myself and the police chief, we are not interested in an eminent domain taking. It's not something that the board or town administration is interested in. So we had to go to Plan B. And Plan B called for leaving the Auburn Street Fire Station open as a station, and then utilizing the property that we're sitting on now, the West Street site. The plan would call for demolishing this building and then building a new police and fire headquarters on this site. And then early on, when Dr. Brunel was still here, we had some very early conversations, really just conceptually, because we really at that point didn't really know what was going to happen, 1 building, 2 building. But sort of early on, and when I say early, I'm going to say like post-COVID, so within the last couple of years, we engaged the school department and said, and asked if they would be interested in relocating to the existing police station. So that's sort of why we're here tonight. We've had a couple of conversations with Dr. Chamberlain, Joe Fahey, your facilities director. They've toured the police station a couple of times. We recently met with the town manager and the assistant town manager, Mr. Kazanovich, who, as I'm sure you know, will become the town's new town manager on January 31st. So we've engaged in some sort of preliminary conversations on what that move may look like, because there's obviously a lot of moving parts to that. We have a rough timeline, and when I say rough, I mean really rough, because there's a lot of factors that go into that. What we can tell you is that we are looking to bring this before the voters in June for a special election. So the plan would be to bring this to the town meeting and hopefully get town meeting approval to basically support the project, but ultimately it would be a full debt exclusion before the community sometime in early June. So what we would like to do is, just after the first of the year, Mr. Kazanovich has expressed interest in holding a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the School Committee to start preliminary conversations on what this move may look like, just kind of get all the pieces sort of in a row. And we want to do that sooner than later. We don't want to wait until June, ultimately, to see what the town's going to do and then figure out, how we're going to make this happen. So what we envision is the school department, providing this passes, the school department would have to move out of this building so it could be demoed, and we would anticipate that they would be in their temporary facility for probably 2.5 years, 2 to 2.5 years. Because what would happen is we would move the school department into temporary quarters. They would demolish this, construct the new building. Then when the police department was able to vacate their location, then we would have to get contractors in to renovate the police department to make it suitable for the school department operation. One of the things that we don't want to do is we don't want to, and I use the word mistakes, and it's probably not the right word, but I'll use it. We don't want to make the same mistakes that sort of the situation that we're in now next door on West Street, and in some reality, the same situation you're in right now, is that although there's been modifications over the years, this building was not designed to be a school administration building. Essentially, you're working out of an old elementary school just like we're working out of an old elementary school. So we don't want to repeat that mistake. So if we're going to make a move and move the school department into the police station, which which is it's a good building. We've said that before. We've said, both our fire stations, the police stations, we take a lot of pride in our buildings. We maintain the buildings. It's not a great police station, but it has the potential to be what we believe is a good school administration building, providing that some money is put up front in order to make the renovations necessary so it's functional in your use. So we have had those preliminary conversations. Again, from a funding perspective, what we do know is that the town manager does not want to tie any renovations to the police department for the school department in with the public safety project. He wants those two things held separately. So we would utilize existing money within the community from reserves or wherever the town manager decides to take those from. But we would not be looking for another ballot initiative to do renovations. It would be our reserves that would renovate the school department. So that's sort of why the timeline is a little longer. It would be about 18 months from the time we break ground. It's about 18 months for the public safety building to complete, but we say probably 24 months to maybe 32, somewhere in there, because we don't know. I mean, that's anticipating maybe it takes 6 months to renovate the police station. We don't know. The other thing that we did talk about was, if this is something that the school department was interested in, Tecton Architects, who is currently designing the public safety building, they've been excellent to work with. The town manager talked about doing an add-on to their contract and using that architectural firm to actually design the school department's building at the police station. That way you actually have a set of plans when you go into construction and, you're looking to design.
And they've already done a kind of a needs assessment on that building, so
They did.
that's a piece that anyone would have to do if we were going to get, they'd have to do an overall assessment of the building as it stands before then they do the redesign, so that piece has already been done, so I think we're gonna look into see if that's a feasible next step to save some money, since that assessment's been done
Okay,
now.
but we use this building as an education center for our high school kids and beyond, right?
We do,
So we need that
we do,
wherever we go,
we do.
Even in the temporary.
even in the temporary. Because these are classrooms we use.
Yeah, and this is exactly why the town manager wants to engage in discussions just after the first of the year, because we know that there's a lot to unpack here. And those are all things that need to be figured out. So to get everybody to the table and have those conversations is extremely important sooner than later.
And I came here one day when they were showing off all this work they had done in the back, and it gives the children something to be proud of.
Yeah.
So wherever they're gonna go, even temporarily, they need to be able to continue those kind of activities.
Yeah, and, those are all
Supplement the whole
conversations that we've had. Well, and as Dr. Chamberlain will tell you, you don't have any room in your existing schools. So anything that we look at, it's going to most likely have to be outside of a school building. So a few things have been talked about internally. I don't want to launch those tonight, but those are conversations that we can have. But there have been some internal discussions on what may occur. But again, I think everybody is mindful that 2 years, 2.5 years, that's not a short amount of time. So we have to make sure that wherever this move is, although temporary, it's done right, because the school department still needs to be able to function, for 2 to 3 school years, outside of this building. So
Right, and
I
it's
think
not just admin,
it's not just admin, it's right. So I think that's understood, even with town administration. So, we can't just pick you up and pluck you into an area that's not going to work for 2 years. That's not acceptable. So,
What happens after the 2 years? I'm confused. You guys come back here, or what happens after the 2 years?
then we go to the
No, then we go to the police station.
Oh, I thought that was our temporary.
no. So
They're gonna be there.
They're gonna be there, so. Yeah, okay. That would be good too.
Aren't you renting out some rooms?
No room at the inn, but,
Oh.
And I would
Okay.
encourage any member of the board that wants to come to the police station to come look around, to walk around, to look inside the building to see what it is. Steve and I feel very supported in this community all the way around. from the citizens to all the members of government and the school committee. We have great relationship, and we want this endeavor to be a positive one for everyone. My academic life in high school was very, very positive, and I still stay in touch with some of my high school teachers. One just recently looked me up, and Auburn has a school system to be proud of, and we don't want to dismantle any of the systems or any of the activities that you have in place at the school. So I just wanted you to hear that from me, that we're not trying to kick you out of anywhere. So we want to make this, we want to make any transition that we make. This is providing that the town supports this endeavor, because this is going to be an expensive endeavor, but it's one that's needed. I won't bore you, but a brief little history. When I started with the Auburn Police Department, I laterally transferred from Charlton to Auburn, and I moved into the police station, the block building across the street from the Sears Auto Center.
Oh, yeah.
And when I went in there, my predecessor, the former Lieutenant Mark Moss, reminded me that when they built that building, the builder came back to the town and said, look, for another $4,000, we can add a few more blocks, we can give you a second story. Well, they didn't do it, and we quickly outgrew that building, and they sold it, and they built this building on Oxford Street, and they did the best they could. It served our purposes for the time, but we're bursting at the seams. We've got 41 sworn police officers, and plus the support personnel on the inside. We've expanded the parking lots a couple of different times. We're actually going to do one more expansion in the spring. We plan on doing that to make more parking. We looked at it, and I think Dr. Chamberlain mentioned it, that Tecton already has the plans. They've gone through that building from top to bottom, so it makes sense, and they've been a great firm too. So it makes sense for them to look at it to see what designs would meet the needs of the school department, the school committee, and the students that would be housed in there.
Through the chair, I just have a couple of questions. I think, obviously, I know that it's needed. I'm very concerned because I know the taxes are going to go up, and I also know we have two housing developments. Well, one definite and one possible housing development. And I've lived in Auburn my whole life, so I lived through English teachers with shock because the town wouldn't build a new building. My dad was on school committee in the 1980s to try to get a new high school. It opened in 2006. So with the taxes increasing with that, I would love to know how is that going to impact if we need a future school someday, or if we need to add on to some of these schools. That's a pretty big, because I know like right now some of our schools are bursting at the seams as well, and if we have extra kids in town, it's going to make that a lot worse. And so if we're having the towns go up on price for this, is it gonna then, let's say 5-10 down the road, they're gonna say, no, we just increased our, I live with a finance guy who says that all day long.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that comes up often, and, unfortunately, as we all know, the purse strings in government are not always that long. The waiting lists are often long. But in reality, unfortunately, for a lot of these projects, that's what it comes to. It comes to, a waiting list. The way that the town does, we are fortunate that we have a good capital improvement plan. We have a 5-year plan. Our plan, we're actually required, I submit mine out 20 years, just because of some of the expenses that we have. So we have good plans. I think what it's important for people to understand, the citizens of the town, is that this is, in some respects, this has been the strategy for a long time, right? We opened a high school in 2006. And then at some point, and then, that took forever. At some point, the MSBA funding, became available, and it allowed us to do the middle school. And the plan has always been that the town wasn't going to tackle another building until the high school debt dropped off. Well, the high school debt is dropping off next year. So this public safety building is actually, we started talking about this building in 2008. And we were told then we're not going to be able to do anything with trying to address any of these facilities until the high school is paid off. And the high school was only open for 2 years at that time. So right out of the gate, we knew we were on the waiting list for 18 years. So And then, again, the middle school we had the opportunity to do something with the middle school. That was awesome, the way that we were able to do that. So I understand your point. I understand your question. I guess the best way to say it is that there are other needs in town, unfortunately, that they have to be addressed. I mean, it's the same thing. We've been trying to address the West Street Fire Station for 35 years. So although I know that there's other needs, we do need to replace schools. We do need to, but there's other things as well. And that's why we kind of like this plan in terms of the school department moving to the police station, because in some respects it kills two birds with one stone. Like this building it's 70-something years old. Something's going to have to be done with this building one way or another at some point. So to be able to sort of get this building down and get the problems that are in this building taken care of, get a new building here, and then move the school department with the proper renovations into the school department, that's probably a 25 to 30-year fix, hopefully, for the school administration portion. Yes, there are other schools, but, at some point, as Dr. Chamberlain will tell you, especially if you're using MSBA money, you can't build administrative spaces with MSBA money. So you would never even have an opportunity to try to address your school administration issue in terms of space or anything that's going on here under any type of a grant project. Now, it doesn't mean that the town couldn't vote to appropriate more money to do it, but that's highly unlikely. So the fact that, the school department would be able to have a fully renovated building that would take care of school administration, those students that you're dealing with here, in some respects, that's a win for the school department as well. Yes, it's not a school, but it's still identifying a need, for a short time. I wish I had a better answer other than, it's a waiting game. Unfortunately, everybody's got to wait. I mean, the DPW is saying the same thing. They're busting at the seams. We got a temporary fix on the library. Town hall's over 100 years old. They're busting at the seam. Everybody's in the same boat. But, in some respects, everybody needs to share the wealth, too.
Right. I guess my biggest concern are our two elementary schools at Bryn Maw's about this big. So,
yeah.
And
And just to go back, because again, the funding piece, we don't know. We launched some numbers at our public listening session on September 6th. We know at the end of the day that this building is not going to cost less than $50 million. We know that. So we're comfortable at floating that number out there because we know it's not going to be less. What I can tell you is that in 2019, when we were sort of, pre-COVID, we were building at about we were building at $510 a square foot. The architects are telling us to plan right now at $750 a square foot. So in 2 years, the price of this public safety building has gone up by $13 million, and we haven't even broken ground yet. The other downfall to this project is interest rates. The town has a AA+ bond rating. We 2 years ago, before the interest hikes, we were borrowing money at ridiculously low rates. We're borrowing money now at 7%. We get that the timing on this is not great, and we talked about this at length at the public listening session. We get that the timing is not great. But what people need to understand is that this is never going to be any cheaper than it is today. And we can only kick the can down the road. There's towns surrounding us. The town of Charlton's a great example. They've been kicking this can down the road for 25 years in hopes that, well, maybe we'll get a better interest rate. Maybe we'll get a better price for square footage. And they could have built 4 fire stations in the last 25 years for what they could have if they had just done the project in 1995. So, we said this publicly at the listening session that we can kick the can down the road, but all of us are very, very positive that in 2 years we're going to come back and we'll be lucky if the project only went up by another $13 million.
Yeah.
So
and by separating it out into 2 instead of doing one whole public safety, that wouldn't make us have other property in town. I'm just thinking, like, if you're able to have a police station, a fire station, because again, I'm glad to hear the other building would stay open. Because I live right over here and I know how far it is to get to everything when you're on the Oxford line. was there any look at doing two separate stations
Yeah.
in two separate places?
Yep,
For,
that's a great question. So Tecton, when they were originally charged with looking at the facilities, they were looking at expansion, renovation of all the existing facilities. West Street cannot be renovated.
right.
Headquarters, it can be renovated slightly, but the footprint can't be expanded. The site, the fire station was built on the pond, on Auburn Pond. They actually filled in, much like the mall, which is part of the reason why the mall doesn't have a second floor, because the site was built on a pond. So we can't put too much weight or expand the footprint because without extensive test borings. But also, it would trigger a whole bunch of things that would be negative because we're in the FEMA floodway. So because we couldn't do any expansion there, because it would essentially make the town ineligible for any federal and state grants. That includes education.
Yep.
So, like we talked about at the listening session, that's just off the table. It has to be off the table. The town can't live without the state and federal funding that we receive. So to make sort of a calculated move to say, well, we want to expand the fire station by 10,000 square feet, and we're going to be willing to give up
Right.
state and federal grants, I mean, that's foolish. So not only did they look at all the facilities for expansion renovation, but they also looked at what the replacement cost of each would be. So if we were to create a new police station, a new fire headquarters, and a new substation, right now, today, that price tag's at about $70 million. So it's about 20 million more than doing the joint police and fire headquarters together. So that was looked at. And again, the reason that we're looking to keep the Auburn Street station open is because response times, that's a huge issue.
Have you thought about the potential impact on Auburn Middle School?
In terms of construction or the,
Construction, having police and fire right here, the road isn't, like the size of the road here, how's that gonna impact?
Yep, that's a great question. So those are all things that were raised when the middle school was actually proposed. There were a lot of people that were complaining about the traffic impacts that the middle school was gonna bring to this site. So our town engineering department, they engaged with the engineering firm that did the traffic studies and all of those things. And as the police chief will tell you, the number one complaint in town to the police department is traffic. It doesn't matter what road you live on, traffic is the number one complaint
Well, maybe not ours.
that comes to the police department. So people are always concerned about traffic. People were concerned about Casella and the trash trucks and, the impact of the Casella trash trucks and those things. It's the same impact that the school buses bring. The school buses are problematic in the morning and in the afternoon, right? The trash trucks are the same way. The trash trucks leave and then they come back at the end of the day. But all of the road work that was done as part of the middle school project, those were all done not only to address the impact of the middle school, but it also gave thought into the forecasting of any other expansion on West Street. So we don't anticipate that even with the public safety building going here, that the road design would have to change at all, because it was already engineered to take those traffic loads into consideration from the school. There'll obviously be, and I can't really speak that great to it at the moment, but there'll obviously probably be I don't anticipate an impact to the school during construction because everything's on site here. Maybe some noise in the initial stages, but, as they start to button up, the outside of the building and work moves to the inside, typically during a construction phase, that's not.
Yeah, that's not the loud part.
That's not as, that's not as critical. But we don't anticipate any traffic issues. Even I raised some traffic concerns out here when the middle school, really just involving the queue from traffic backing up in front of the building. But what they did is if you stand in front of the fire station and you look directly across the street, there's a pole that's like right in front of the station. they put a traffic enunciator on there, where we used to have to pull out of the fire station, turn on to West Street, and then we have a device on the truck that triggers the traffic light to turn green. They actually just move that onto a pole. So now as soon as the doors go up and the emergency lights are on, it actually triggers that and turns the light green before we even pull out of the station. And that helps move the traffic on West Street, so the traffic's already moving before we turn on to West Street. And it's something I haven't really, I'll be honest with you, I haven't paid attention to it in a lot of years. It's something I paid attention to in the first couple of years when the middle school opened. But my staff will tell you that they have very little, if any, issues with traffic on West Street.
Excuse me, would the fire tower still stay there, or?
Yes. Yep.
Right where it is?
Right where it is. Unfortunately, we were trying to, the committee, when they made, the civilian committee that made the recommendation to move to this site, also made the recommendation that we try to pursue purchasing the Perro's Auto Building right over here. We tried to engage the owners. Unfortunately, Mike Perro, who was the principal, he passed away this past year. So the land, without getting into a long story, the land is really not in a position to be sold at the moment. But Tecton Architects has told us that they will design this building in a way that if in 3, 5, 10 years the town ever had an opportunity to purchase that parcel, the town should keep an eye at purchasing the parcel to give us room in 30 years if we needed to expand, even if it was by way of parking. It would allow us to at least move out towards Southbridge Street. The hope was that if we purchased that parcel, we were going to be able to spin the building and actually be forward-facing to Southbridge Street instead of forward-facing to West Street. But it's not going to shake out that way. So it will fit on this site, but it's going to require us to do a 3-story building instead of a 2-story building.
And in your plans so far, are you taking land from the school?
So that's a great question. So the little soccer field that's right behind this building, like where the garden is, so in order to accommodate the parking needs, they'll lay a parking space over that soccer field. We have looked at the middle school site. We've worked with the town planning department, and if you're standing out here and you're looking at the middle school, to the right side of the middle school, where the football field is, there's that wooded area. There is enough room to the right side of that to replicate, actually make it even a little bigger, to replicate that soccer field to the right of the football field behind the building. And that's something that we're going to incorporate into the public safety building project, is that before everything's wrapped up, they'll replicate that field on the right side of the football field.
Got a little sad there. My kid plays there. I was like, aw.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to lose ground, you
Yes.
know?
Right.
I mean, a meeting would be great. I'm looking forward to talking it over with the Board of Selectmen and especially Ed. You know, as long as the funding is there to build what we need over at the police station, I mean, it's a game of give and take. Like, we want what's best for you guys, and we know you guys want what's best for us, so we just got to figure out a way to make it all work. The only way we can really do that, to start that, is communication. So a meeting will be great, and I care most about these guys and our staff at the schools. Student safety is a big thing, you know, if fire trucks are coming and going, making sure the buses aren't in their way and you guys aren't in, you know, like, just those little details. And even the kids have been through COVID. They've already lost a couple of years. If we're going to lose a year because of construction noise, not that there's anything, you know, if this passes, we can't do anything about that. But it's just something else to think about, and just one of my concerns that I'm throwing out
And
there.
I'm wondering if
So,
maybe that construction could be done in the summer.
yeah,
you know,
if
like
the
the
outside, if maybe
'cause-
timing-wise, we could.
Yeah, because Doherty right now is building right next to their old Doherty, and I haven't heard any problems.
And through the chair, Dr. Timberland, you've been in the police station. Do you think that's a feasible option for us?
It will require renovation, but space-wise
But
and
space-wise.
square foot-wise, I think we'll be okay.
Okay, good.
Little tricky, you know, Gail, you brought up our students, right?
Yeah.
We have a unique situation with the group of students that are with us. But seemingly, you know what, I don't think there's any problem that can't be solved, right? It just requires some thinking it through. But They've been very supportive and know that we have certain needs that have to be met as well, and I think the town as well is in support of that, so it's a matter of figuring it out.
All right.
Yeah, as
you
long as
actually-
the funding is there.
Yeah.
We
If
don't
you-
have the money.
If you look at the usable.
We don't have any money.
If you look at the usable square footage in this building compared to the police station as it relates to office space, the police station is actually bigger from a square footage perspective
Really?
than what you have from usable space. You can't look at this building in totality. You have to look at it in terms of the space that, is being used, like these, not necessarily this room, this has to be big, but a lot of these offices here, right, they're very oversized for what they would be, if you were designing that building or whatever. So the police station's over 10,000 square feet. I think it's a couple hundred bigger than the 10,000 square feet that you have of the usable space that you're using here.
Now, when you do a public safety complex, do the police and fire departments use some of the same spaces inside the building, or is it one half fire and one half police or something?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So one of the main advantages to doing a joint facility is you save a lot on the internal infrastructure. It's one heating system versus two heating systems or three heating systems if you were going to do 3 buildings. Same plumbing, same electrical. It's a lot of that same internal infrastructure. There are 3 common spaces in the building that would be able to be utilized by both police and fire. The training room that would be on the main floor, large training room, that would be a shared space for police and fire. The gym, and what's the third one that I'm missing? And the communications center. So there's 3 shared spaces. Other than that, the way that the building is designed is police does not have access to the fire side, and fire does not have access to the police side. If I want to go meet with the chief, I got to go to the lobby and get buzzed in the same way I got to get buzzed in when I go to Oxford Street today. So it's not sort of this, free-for-all. Because although public safety is the mission of both, in some respects, the missions are very different, and the work environments and the workspace is very different. So that's the advantage of working with good architects that design public safety buildings. They know both the police and fire side, because there's examples of really poor designed public safety buildings across the state that we're trying to avoid. I just want to just point out one thing that the chairman said. One thing that you got to just keep in mind is that we have an active fire station here now. This is a fully staffed fire and EMS station. So you just said something about fire trucks, being here in the future. Fire stations existed here since the day the middle school opened. So this is a staffed working fire station. Unless no one's picked up the phone, we have not had one issue or complaint since that middle school opened. So that is not necessarily a concern for mine. I think we cohabitate very well on this space. The way that it was designed, with the traffic patterns and things like that, if you look at it, it's not, from an engineering perspective, it's not the cleanest, but it's actually designed that way for a reason, because it's almost impossible for someone to turn into our space, and it's really, unless we drive over the curb and over some grass, it's not able for us to intrude on that space. So that's actually, again, when the architects or when the engineers were looking at it, I remember sitting in some of these meetings, it was kind of funny, like, their eye was twitching a little bit, because from an engineering perspective, it really wasn't the cleanest, but it's like, yeah, but you got to understand, you're trying to cohabitate a fire station and a middle school. There has to, we're looking for this traffic pattern to almost have some safety principles sort of built into it as well, that you're not going to have a random person showing up on our side and vice versa. You have to make some conscious decisions to get to where you're going over there. So that's not really a concern for mine, because I think we've been cohabitating very well for a long time.
So one of the points that I didn't close in on when I was talking about the 2 police stations, so really, the town has built 2 20 to 25-year buildings that have to be replaced, and we're trying not to replicate that problem. Steve and I just had a field trip with some of his staff and some of my staff out to some of the public safety facilities in the area, and we went out to one in a very affluent community. And I was talking to the police chief, and I asked him how long they expected this building to last the town, and he said 50 years. I said, so how many lockers do you have? And it was an important question to me because we've run out of locker space for the officers. Our command staff have given up their lockers so the officers can secure their belongings and their equipment and their gears and their firearms and all of that. He says, I have 4 extra lockers. So they just drop a number, just almost $20 million a couple of years ago on a public safety complex. And I don't think they put the forethought into it that we're trying to put into this. We're trying not to make that mistake again. I think we owe it to our citizens, and Steve and I said from the beginning, we will not put forth and stand by a substandard product. Just like I'm sure the school committee wouldn't with a school. You're building the schools and the schools that you're going to need in the future to meet the needs of the students and the population, 10, 20, 30 years from now. But that was the point I wanted to make on the schools. And the other part of this that a lot of people in town don't know is the community room portion in the police station. We use that as our EOC, and the EOC is the Emergency Operations Center when we have critical incidents in town, major storms, tornadoes, extended law enforcement events, it could be anything that the town may need to open up the EOC for. So that is another shared resource that would go into a new building for us. It would be probably the training area that we'd share with the fire would double as the EOC. Right now, Steve made a great point. If we had to gather all the Auburn police officers and all the Auburn Fire Department, we don't have a building in town that will house that. We couldn't address fire and police staff all together at once because the footprints in our building or any of Steve's too won't house that. But.
Okay.
All right, well, it's a lot to take in, and a lot to think about, for sure.
Can I ask you, how many policemen do we have in town now?
Right now, we have 41, from me down to the last patrolman that I just hired that's in the police academy. Right now, we have 41 sworn personnel, and then support staff, we have probably another 15 support staff at the station, between communications, dispatch, secretarial staff.
And fire department?
We have 42 sworn members, and then I have 3 civilian members.
Okay.
And how many, when did that open? Was that about 25 years ago?
22.
I can't remember.
2000, yeah, 2000,
2000.
22, almost 23 years ago.
How
And
many
when
did
we
we
moved
have
in,
then?
we had 17 officers.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a big difference.
And Steve and I aren't going to come up here and paint a dark or dreary picture, but all you have to do is live in town and watch the news. Our public safety needs are different than other communities. We're challenged because of the road infrastructure. We're challenged because of our proximity to the city of Worcester.
290.
290, 395, the Mass Pike. So we have a lot of challenges. We're the town of car dealerships and hotels and motels, which brings different challenges to the fire department and the police department. The fire department's numbers have exploded. So that's kind of what Steve looks at. What was your comment, Steve? You said right now, we focused on public safety and our buildings, and what we really need to be able to do is focus on our mission. And I'm stealing what Steve said. We take pride in our building. We've really worked very hard. After I became chief, my admin, Stacy Fitzgerald, we've named it Fitzgerald Construction. She's gone right through the building with facilities in town, and they've repainted walls, and we've replaced flooring, and we maintain our HVAC system. Right now, the town is actually doing a study on the HVAC systems in all the town buildings, and we're hoping to be able to capitalize on that to make some improvements.
Great. All right. Wow. Whew.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for the information, for sure. And we'll go to that meeting, definitely. And so I guess the biggest concern, it seems like, is what happens in that
Our temporary
transition time.
location.
While they're
So,
working.
and we have students involved with that, so.
About your staff having to relocate as well?
Oh,
Yeah, so
yeah,
we're-
that's right.
So we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
We're in the same boat because, again, I actually had a resident from West Auburn at the public listening session say something to me after the fact because that question was asked, well, where are we going during construction? So I made the comment and I said, I have enough room, barely, but I have enough room that I could absorb the operational crew from here at headquarters, but I have 4 administrative staff that work out of this building that I can't absorb at headquarters. So at a minimum, I'm going to need office space for the 4 administrative staff that work out of there. But I had made the comment about operationally, I could probably absorb them at headquarters. And then I had a resident from West Auburn come up to me afterwards and say, I just have a question about what you said about absorbing them there in relation to your comment about response times.
Yeah.
And they said, you know, if this is an 18 to 24-month build, how, and I said to her, I said, the hypocrisy of that is not lost on me. You know, I said, I understand that completely. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the voters. It's going to come down to the funding plan. To, you know, Mrs. Harrington's point, the money has to be there in order for all of these other pieces outside of constructing a new building. Both the fire department and the school department, we still need to be able to function for 2 years. And that's going to take some outside money outside of this public safety building. If I had my choice, I would erect somewhere, it can't be on this site because the room isn't there, but I would probably try to do a public-private partnership with a business over here that has some spot. And if it was up to me, I would bring in temporary trailers and a temporary shelter to be able to house a fire engine and an ambulance and a crew out in West Auburn. Because I think, you know, if something would happen to the building and I had to vacate for a couple of weeks because something happened, okay, that is what it is. But I told this resident, because she was concerned about that. She said, I live over on Waterman Road, and I wouldn't want to see our neighborhood fire station closed for 2 years. And I said, no, I agree with you 100%. So I'm going to be advocating to town administration, to the board. I would like to see us set up shop somewhere temporarily in West Auburn, because I think that is a long period of time to give up what I consider to be very outstanding response times to emergencies in this end of town. So,
Like life care right there, I'm sure you get called there all the time.
yeah, we do. It's, you know, everything seems to shake out to about 1%. You know, but yeah, it's, you know, all of the facilities. I mean, we go to the car dealerships, the restaurants, you know, there's a lot going on in West Auburn. You know, 17 years ago when I was a newly minted deputy chief, I stuck my foot in my mouth once at a public meeting because I underestimated the value of this fire station. Yeah. And I got it handed to me by the residents in West Auburn. And I promised myself, quite honestly, that I would never make that same mistake again. So I will be advocating for making sure that the west side of town has the fire and EMS services that they deserve for that 2-year period of time.
Yeah.
All right, we'll ride on your coattails while you're advocating.
Hop on. So, yeah, that's, you know, unless anybody has any questions, like I said, it's a small taste. There's still a lot of work to do, but we look forward after the first. Honestly, I wouldn't anticipate a meeting until probably February. When Mr. Kazanovich officially, you know, takes over. Although Julie would be gung-ho to come to this meeting, we're probably better served just waiting and maybe try to get something together like the first week in February, maybe the end of January, you know, something like that. But we'll have further discussions with Mr. Kazanovich, but we'll make sure we work through Dr. Chamberlain and make sure that we can we're looking forward to everybody getting sort of at the same table after the first of the year.
Perfect, yeah. And we want to work together, we do. It's not, you know, so.
There's a lot involved, more than you.
Moving pieces.
Yep,
Yeah, more
that's
than
for
you
sure.
think, yeah.
That's for sure. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Yeah.
Everybody have a great holiday.
Have a great holiday, too.
We'll see you soon.
Tell Liam I said hi.
I will.
All right, good.
You'll probably talk to him before me.
Oh, probably.
Thank you both so much.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Stay safe. Well, you're not cool anymore.
Stay safe.
All right.
Get some therapy dogs now. That's great.
Now we got some therapy.
I need therapy.
home to therapy dog every day.
Gosh.
Bring a
Puppy face washer.
Okay, we'll move
All right, so we
on.
are indeed moving on to therapy dogs. So this is a little bit unusual. As I spoke of earlier, the three other policies that are on the agenda for tonight are going through a three-read policy. I'm proposing to you a little bit of a different approach to this one. We've been given the opportunity, with a collaboration with Holy Cross, who has a therapy dog, who has offered to come into Packagug and Bryn Mawr once a week. With their handler. They have all the other certifications that go along with the policy. But when we reviewed the policy, if you see on page 3, initially, the policy said a handler is a school district staff member who has been individually trained and
Yeah.
evaluated to provide this. So this would not be provided by a district staff member, but it would be provided by a trained handler who would be accompanied and supervised by a staff member.
I like that.
And so seemingly, given that this is the only change requested for this policy, I'm wondering if we can circumvent the 3 reads to allow this to begin to happen would start after the holidays, so after the break.
Yeah.
They're looking at it for, they're looking at it for small groups of targeted students who perhaps need some motivation around reading or that kind of thing. Parents would have the opportunity to opt out of this, to participating. For instance, if there were a child who was fearful or
Allergic.
any of those things, they wouldn't have to participate. It would be, our dog over at the middle school is a little bit more wide open to the whole community. We're looking at starting this in a very small way. I don't know what it will develop into, but initially it would just be for small groups of kids, once a week. So I am looking to go around that, the 3 reads, but that is entirely your jurisdiction, and if you'd like to bring this back, we can certainly delay the beginning of having the dog visit, so you'd have some time to think about it and explore. So either way is fine, but I leave it to you to discuss to see how we proceed.
I'm all for it personally. I mean,
too.
it's a free opportunity, and it's a shame to throw it away because of this one tiny stipulation.
Yeah, and kids just,
They love it.
they love it.
It's great.
I got my son reading through COVID, he read to Obi.
Oh, see?
Through the chair, I just have 2 things. One, we have a therapy dog at my school, and it's awesome. The kids love him. My other question is, is there anything about them having to be Cory checked?
Oh, anybody that would come in is
Okay,
Cory
just making sure.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
the
all for
handler. The handler would have to.
Yeah, the handler, not the dog. It's been one of those days, huh, Jesse?
No, she does.
Yeah.
Well, Obi would need to be Cory checked.
Through the chair, what kind of dog is it? Do we know?
It's a golden doodle.
Oh, I love those.
Good.
I'm a Holy Cross alum, and they featured it.
Oh, okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
Allergies not an issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. They don't even shed.
Yeah,
Actually, I think one of their security officers, that's the handler,
Yeah.
is one of the their security staff.
Yeah, our therapy dog is like a 90-pound, Alaskan Malamute. And the thing is, he's such a sweetheart. He just sits there and takes it, whatever. Whatever you want to him, sorry.
All right, so I think we can take that to vote. I feel pretty confident that, yeah, we're all on board.
I'll make a motion to revise the policy IMG regarding therapy dogs and add the following statement, or trained handler accompanied and supervised by a district person.
And I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
All
Thank
right,
you very much.
that's
You have
exciting.
made some staff and kids
Great.
very happy.
Great. And when was that gonna start? I want an
After the holidays.
update.
Yeah, I want in on this.
Yeah.
After the holidays.
Okay, good. Maybe that dog can come in with Ella and they can do a little presentation together.
Oh, there you go.
On a presentation with the
So
dog.
many kids vaccinated.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
so
Let's
cute.
make this happen.
Right.
Presentation with the dog.
Yeah, dogs are awesome. All right, moving on.
Excellent. Okay, so the next thing, we kind of moved around a little bit. We're on to the 2023-2024 bus application, if you can believe that we're thinking about next year, and we haven't even hit the holiday break. But we felt that this was an important thing to do. So if you recall last year, we had number one, we had a lot of applications to ride the bus for this particular school year, and many of them came in very late in the summer, which put us in a predicament that we were very concerned at the very last minute if we were going to have to add another bus, which was going to be disruptive all the way around. So the format of this form has changed, but I will tell you that very little of the content has changed. We wanted to make the form itself a little bit more accessible, but the big thing that I'd ask you to look at is the fee schedule, which is on the back of the first page. Keeping with what I believe has been school committee policy in the past, right, we want to minimize the impact any fees we place on our families has. So what we've done is, with this fee schedule, we have kept the current fee schedule. If you see bus application fees, if received by May 1st of 2023, the fees remain the same as they are this year. So no increase, same thing, just let us know sooner that you're riding the bus. And then we proceeded to change that beyond that. So by June 1st, the fee goes up a little bit to $125 with a 300 cap. If July 1st, 150 with a 350, and so on. We tend to get lots of arguments when we talk to families about a late fee. So when we say there's a late fee, right, which is what we've always done, well, I'm not paying that late fee.
Oh.
So this is a bit of a shift to say, no, this is, at this point, this is
What it
what the
costs.
fee is. This is what it costs. And really, we don't want to punish anyone, right? So obviously, any new student that comes to us they don't
I was
go
gonna
by
ask
this
that.
schedule.
Okay.
This is only for our current students,
Mm-hmm.
folks that we know, are already with us, are probably already riding the bus, that we need to know much sooner for planning purposes. We, fortunately, things worked out this school year, and we didn't have to add a route, and the population on the buses has been good and safe, but we're growing, and given, you talked about the housing, we don't know who's coming in. The sooner we know at least the big bulk of ridership, which would be our current riders, the more easily we can plan.
Yep.
So that's really, the one other thing, that there is a change as well. If you look on the rules and regulations for busing, which again is primarily adapted from what was already on the form, but two things are here. It does say in here that school choice students are not permitted to ride on the bus. Now, that is part of our school choice policy. But historically, we have allowed some school choice students, they get a ride to a bus stop, and then they hop on the bus, rather than having their family having to drive them. Now, this isn't a lot of students. I want to say maybe 6 or 7, maybe 8. But when we're strapped for spots, like we could have been this year, 6, 7, or 8 spots would have made a difference, right? So we think we have to preclude that altogether for our school choice students, that, they can still come, but they need to get their own transportation, which is really was the intention all along. And the other thing we've added is the piece about the distance from school. In the middle of that is determined by using the distance from the home address to the school with Google Maps, because we've had families dispute that with how we determine how far away they live. And so we wanted to have that clearly on here to say, this is how we do it. It's from the home to the school, period. Because sometimes you'd be surprised if you do it from the school to the home, you get a different distance, right? So that's how we're going to determine it, so it's a consistent process.
So is this process determined by where they would have to walk, or not as the crow flies, right?
No, because if you're using Google Maps, right, it's giving you
On the road.
street directions.
Okay.
So question, if we've had a student school choice for 3 years and they've been taking the bus, all of a sudden they don't have a ride anymore? Is that
I think,
grandfathered in kids too, or?
well, I don't know about that. I still think we're doing a big service to our school choice kids, and particularly, many of them at our high school, which we're not even really obligated to transport high school kids.
True.
I think it has to be across the board, and I think folks should be able to adjust to that when they know their child's going to school in another community. Because it really was not the intention to start with, that they'd be allowed to ride the bus anyway, so. And, I take your advice on that. My opinion is that we would have this across the board.
Then it's going to get dicey, because then we have siblings, and, so
Exactly.
it's just going to, I agree.
Through the chair, in the past, I mean, I know last year, because last year was the first year that we did, that my family did bus. I thought we could fill it out through
Zip slip?
Yes.
Yes, so that is, thank you for bringing that up. I've been working with our SNAP crew here of administrative assistants. They would really, we may not be using Zip Slip
Okay.
next year, but we are looking at Google Forms.
Okay.
to-
Because I know
to
that
set
that was
this up.
so fabulously easy,
Yes.
so, and for some parents, I think it would be really difficult if we only accept it at West.
Yes.
Like, they might not be able to get here, they might not feel comfortable putting in the I mean, I'd put it in the mailbox, but.
Yeah, no, that's another point. So that really is the intention, is that while we've set this up, we want it to be really eye-catching, but we think we'll do it through Google Form.
Okay.
Still have the option for Unipay, or we have the box out to just drop off a payment.
Okay.
Those kind of things. There is some clarity in here, too, that they're not considered having a complete bus application until payment has been received, because that was another glitch that they're like, well, the form didn't really say that, which the old form didn't really say that, even though that was the intention. And so we've clarified that, but.
And when I was here, I think definitely the free and reduced lunch program piece, it needs, a lot of parents, when I was here helping with the bus stuff, a lot of parents were unclear, wait, I need to fill out the bus form too. So that seemed to be like a clarity issue. Like, my child's on free and reduced lunch, I need to now fill out a bus form too. So that seemed to be a little confusing to some parents.
Yeah.
The chair- I mean,
go
we've
ahead.
been saying it every year.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you're free and reduced, that you do need to fill out the registration form in order to be on the bus.
And I felt like, for me, that was like, when I read it, I was like, okay, everyone needs to fill this out if you want to take the bus.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's how we account for our ridership, because we have a number of children who are on free and reduced lunch who don't take the bus, right? So we have to account for those, how many kids we have in seats. So that's the big thing. The other, it's unfortunate, we wished we would have the free and reduced lunch form in the spring. We don't get that till summertime,
Yeah.
later in the summer. So it would be great if we could have it all done at
Yeah.
the same time, but we don't get those forms in time to do that. But yes, so we think we are going to do this that way. And we're going to put together a real advertising campaign, because I don't know. I just asked Eric Bouvier, I want a way to know who reads my emails, because I send them out, but quite frankly, I have a big question. And it says received, but it doesn't says read, right? So how do I know that they've even opened it, So we're gonna take all angles on this. We're gonna start using some text messaging, we'll use Facebook, all those things. So, and probably talk about it here every time we have a meeting. We may send home some paper flyers,
I
maybe
was
some
gonna say,
paper
might have to go back
applications.
to paper, snail mail,
We
stuff
have to
like
do
that.
some things
Make
like
sure
that, because
every house gets it.
it's gonna be tricky, right? Especially in a first year that you do this, but I think we can really blast it from the rooftops, like, just get it done, just turn it in.
Yep.
So for the people at home, just so they understand, because it was hairy scary the start of this year, how much would it have cost us to add another bus?
It was going to be at least $75,000.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so that is a huge hit to our budget. So that is like the number one reason, not to mention rerouting, doing the routes all over, and the confusion that would go with that. So
Yeah.
it's a monetary hit, it's a mental and emotional hit for the people that are working on this.
Through the chair, I'm glad you asked that, and I'm glad you said that, because I don't think people realize the effect of not filling something out or making the payment affects in the long run, when we have to
And
do
affects
something like that.
It's a
The pockets, their
$75,000
pockets,
penalty that the district pays.
Totally.
Correct.
So
Wow.
a $25 penalty, if you will, for, from these families for not paying on time seems minuscule compared to the
Yeah.
$75,000 hit we would
Yeah.
take.
And
So-
through the chair, I feel like giving dates and saying, oh, no, as of June 1st, this is the payment. As of July 1st, this is the payment. I think that that's a little bit more palatable than a late fee for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, this is the fee schedule. It's posted. It's
Yeah.
public.
Yep.
And we are not refunding if people back out of the bus.
Nothing is going to be refundable anymore.
Okay.
No refunds. We can't, it's very difficult to manage.
I would put on here, non-refundable fee.
It does say at the
It
bottom
does?
over here.
Okay.
And it says at the bottom over here, it's here and it's here.
Okay.
All bus fees are
All
non-refundable.
right, okay.
Love it.
Great.
Through the chair, the thing to understand too is that we count on those bus fee revenues to offset our budget for for transportation. So we put a certain amount from the fees into our budget as an offset.
Yeah.
So if we're, by refunding or, not getting the fees, it's not helping us in our budget process.
Yeah, right. And we're not trying to make a buck off people. We're trying to
No,
keep,
we are not.
the lights on and keep the wheels
Yeah.
turning on the
Yeah, and
buses.
so just to restate that, right, if they pay by May 1st, it's the same fee as it was this
Yeah.
year and the year before, and for several years, I think. We haven't
Yeah.
raised
Yeah.
that, so.
Great.
So, all right, and make it shareable on Facebook, and I'll share it, and we can
Yeah,
all
me
share
too.
it,
We
and
can all
whatever.
The whole thing.
Yeah, so, I'm seeking a motion then.
I'll make a motion to support the updated fee schedule and distribution process for Auburn Public School bus applications.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So you just made a number of people here at central office very happy.
And you lots of parents are gonna be angry come July 1st.
They should have paid as of May 1st.
It's for planning purposes only, though. It really is.
Well, also, I think it's just quickly important to notice too, that we have to maybe remind people, I know last year was June 1st, and we moved it up to May 1st, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Probably we need to make sure we get that out there.
Yes, good call on that. Yeah, definitely. Okay. All right, moving on.
The next item is the Auburn Elks donation. So I was recently contacted by Chris Stannard from the Auburn Elks. They have found themselves having a little bit richer this year from some bingo revenues and that kind of thing. I think people are happy to be out and about again.
Yeah.
And they made the decision to support some local school districts. So they reached out to several districts in the area, Auburn being one of them, and asked if there was any need that we would have that we could use the money to offset this year, because they needed to, based on their own budget, kind of distribute this money fairly quickly. We've not yet received it because of the size of the donation. I wanted to run this by all of you. But one of the things that we as a cabinet and leadership team talked about was we pay for all of the PSAT tests for our kids at the high school so that no one is hit. I think it's $16 to take it. But it's something that we feel like if they have to pay for it, a lot of kids aren't gonna take it. They aren't gonna get the experience. And then if they, really decide they wanna go into college, now they're kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit. So it really allows them all to take it, and that can cost us closer to $8,000. They've committed to donate to us $5,000. And I seek your support to accept the donation from the Auburn Elks.
It's very generous offer, definitely. Any questions or discussion? I think it's a win-win for us, and thank you very much to the Elks. It's amazing.
Very generous.
Yeah.
They did say, they don't think they can do this every year. It was kind of a windfall of a year for them, and I said, you know what?
We'll take
Totally
it.
understood.
Yeah, we'll take what we can get. Yeah, definitely. All right, I'll seek a motion to accept.
Make a motion to accept with gratitude the donation of $5,000 from the Auburn Elks Lodge to offset the cost of PSAT tests for students at the Auburn High School.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, and we'll send them a thank you card?
We will.
Okay, great. All right, moving on to another donation.
Another donation. So, as you know, you often see the many hundreds of pumpkins spread on the lawn of the First Congregational Church. This year, members of the high school football team helped to unload those pumpkins, and the National Honor Society assisted with the sales. And as a thank you, the church donated $100 to the football team and the National Honor Society. So the money will be deposited into their respective accounts, and we thank them very much for their generous donation, for the donation of the kids' time.
Yeah, that's great. All right, can I get a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept with gratitude the donation of $100 to the Auburn High School football team and the $100 donation to the High School National Honor Society.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thanks to them as well.
Yes,
Great.
thank you.
And kudos to the kids that went out of their way to help. That's awesome. Yeah,
They
I
probably
know, that's
had
a
a
lot of
blast.
work. Yeah, they're probably throwing them around.
Some of them are heavy.
The next item is about non-permanent cafeteria workers' wage increase, basically what you might call a substitute cafeteria worker. There's a letter in your packet from Janice King, our Director of Food Services. She's requesting your permission to increase the rate from $14.25 to $15 an hour to remain competitive in the labor market. As you can imagine, she too is struggling to get folks to come in and work, and she feels like this will help a little bit to do that.
Okay. Any discussion? All right. Let's seek a motion.
Make a motion to approve the request to increase the rate of non-permanent cafeteria workers from $14.25 to $15 per hour.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
The next item is just a bit of information. The class of 2023 Adams Scholarship recipients is also in your packet. We're happy to report that 57 seniors were awarded this scholarship. I've given you some specifics about how they qualify for that, having to do with going on to higher education, college-bound, and some of the tests that they had to pass. Students, individual student awards are around like $1,700 for UMass in, I think the University of Massachusetts at Amherst and Boston, Dartmouth and Lowell around $1,400. And we had a nice little breakfast, and Mr. DeLongchamp spoke to them, and it was a lovely thing. So we have a lot to be proud of on those kids that can get those scholarships.
That's awesome. A lot of familiar names.
I was just gonna say,
A lot of
I love
town
seeing the
doers.
familiar names.
Yes, good
Yes.
kids on that list.
Excellent.
Yes.
Funny, I see some of my Bryn Mawr kids at the high school now. It's just awesome.
Oh, man.
It's awesome.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
So does that mean these kids are attending these schools, or?
No, they just have the opportunity, they've now been awarded this option, so if they do attend one of those schools, they present the letter and they can, they receive that financial assistance.
But if they don't attend those schools, one of those schools,
They don't get the
they don't
award.
get
They don't get it, yeah.
Okay.
But they qualify to do
they
that.
qualify.
Great,
Thank
well,
you.
good for them. That's awesome. All righty, moving on to the teaching and learning report.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a quick update. So when I was here at the last meeting talking about budget, I mentioned the Wonders ELA program that we've had since 2016 at pre-K through 5. And so one of the things I mentioned that night is we're looking at upgrading. So our contract is up for that ELA program. And so I've been meeting with the principals at the 3 buildings as well as with each of the teachers, and we've been talking about the potential upgrade to, so Wonders has had 2 upgrades since we took on the 2017 version. They have a 2020 version and a 2023 version. And so we've been looking at comparing the 2017 to the 2020 and the 2023 version. And we've had some conversations about some of the strengths and things that we think that teachers have supplemented along the way. Like any program you have, you're going to be supplementing with different things. There's no perfect program out there. And so those have been really great conversations, beneficial conversations to talk about comparing 2017 to 2020 and to 2023, as well as what we want in a program moving forward. So we've got 2 teachers at each grade level that are going to begin a trial unit sometime after January to look at those new revisions, and then we'll be coming together as a committee to talk about the experience that they've had with those programs, and that will inform our decision moving forward, which I'll update all of you, so.
Okay, good.
Are these volunteer teachers?
They are, yes, yeah.
Well, thank you to them.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
great.
Yeah, they're excited to do it, excited to kind of be at the forefront of
Yeah.
and leading that process, and then communicating back with their colleagues about what they're experiencing that, and then we'll have a large conversation as a group to help inform that decision.
All right, cool.
Through the chair, are they only doing the Wonders program?
Um,
Are they piloting anything else?
No, so that's some of the conversation that we've had. You know, what I've said to teachers and what Dr. Chamberlain and I have talked about is we feel as though Wonders has served us really well, and when you look at, there's 2 organizations that evaluate curricular materials. There's Ed Reports, which is done at the national level, and there's Curate, which is done at the Massachusetts level. It basically takes Ed Reports and has a Massachusetts lens on it, applying our standards, and so Wonders has received great ratings, the 2020, and we're still waiting the 2023 evaluation. And so teachers, pretty much unanimously feel as though, although, again, as I said, there's areas where they've had to supplement Wonders. They feel as though it's a strong program. They've put a lot of time and effort into supplementing it and making it work. And so we're at the point where we feel as though Wonders is a program that we want to continue to move forward with. Back in 2016, I think it was 2016, right?
was.
When we looked at different programs, they felt like that program would be right for us, and there still is that feeling at this
Great,
time.
okay. As long as they're happy.
Yeah.
All right, through the chair, there is money put aside in ESSER for the purchase of this new program, which can be a substantial amount of money.
Great.
Good.
So that's part of the reason too, right? As Ellen said, there's no one program that does it all.
Yeah.
It just isn't,
Yeah.
And this has served us well. We know we'll have to do some tweaks to it, but hopefully we can use this money to do that, which will save the district an extraordinary amount of money.
Great.
Through the chair, I'm happy we're listening to the teachers to see that that's something that they want to continue with. And, because if they were like, oh, no, we don't want this, and then we're like, no, we're gung-ho on Wonders, then that would be rough on them, I think. So I'm glad that the teachers are happy with it. And as long as we're hearing from all of them, not just the 2 volunteers,
Oh, yeah.
that'll make me happy, so.
Yeah, part of the process, and I had just finished, actually earlier this week with the teachers at Packagug, and so part of the process was meeting with every single teacher and talking
Great.
about their experience with Wonders and then considering moving forward, so yeah, absolutely.
And it's got its weaknesses, but we're gonna figure that out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no perfect bullet. If we could invent it, let me tell you. We could
You'd be
make some money
millionaires.
with that.
You could pay for the new public safety complex.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
In a different location. Anyway, that's my passive aggressive side. It's okay. All right, we're
I
on
thought for
board.
sure it was gonna go down where the old Yankee drummer used to be.
Well, that would make sense, but
Be a great
conversation
spot
for
there.
another
Yeah,
day.
right in the middle, right near
Yeah.
the center of town,
Yep.
highway.
Yep.
I thought for
No way to
sure.
move his domain.
All right. Well, moving on to business and financial.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I wanted to bring forward discussion of a procurement card for the school department. A procurement card is, well, it's termed P-Card, and it's a program that was begun by the Association of School Business Managers, and it's endorsed by the Mass Association of School Business Managers. It's widely used by many school districts. I actually have used it in a previous district years ago. It was originally began in Illinois, and they've opened it up for other districts within other states to use it as well. Basically, they use the Harris Bank in Illinois for the company, and the application will be made directly to them. My rationale for doing this is, I'd like to, right now, oftentimes we have a difficulty. Things come forward. More and more places are refusing to take purchase orders, not accepting them. We've had we had a Staples credit card that we no longer have. Amazon, we've been very fortunate to have our line of credit with Amazon, but that's going to be ending for us in January. They've decided not to continue the line of credit, so that will go away. And a lot of times if we have staff traveling, like on a field trip, like for example, the ski trip, they're going out of state. Oftentimes you have to book your hotel rooms, you have to book the airline, those type of things, and a lot of you can't do that with. It was saying, we'll give you a PO, and, granted, the PO is a contract that we agree to pay, but it's like it has to be prepaid, and it's unfortunate when we have to ask our staff to put that on their credit cards and then be reimbursed. So we're trying to eliminate that as well, and just kind of keep it mostly, I'd like to have it kept for just like circumstances where we can't get something, by our regular procurement, policy, in the sense of normally people would put in for a requisition to turn it into a purchase order, and they would be approved, and the purchase order would be sent to the vendor, and that guarantees payment. But a lot of places, just even National Honor Society, I think for some of their pins and things weren't taking the PO, so our National Honor Society advisor had to upfront the money to pay for the pins, and then we reimbursed them. So we have no other option, because normally it takes us probably a 2-week turnaround time to get a check cut to a vendor, so it's something we can't do quickly. So what I've done is, the procurement card is widely used throughout the United States, in many states, but MASBO had like a procurement card procedure manual, like template, and I've taken it and kind of turned it into Auburn's own, and I've included that in your packet. Tonight I had it on as an action, looking to get a recommendation or approval from you to move forward with trying to apply for applying for the procurement card and trying to move forward with that. If you feel like you know, I'd be happy to do that tonight, but if you feel like you need more time to review the procurement card procedure manual, I'm more than happy to bring it back. It's basically, it outlines what's allowed with the procurement card. It's also, it talks about, it gives people understanding of what it is. And also, they're going to have to, if somebody, my goal is to kind of keep it very limited. It would be probably kept at the district central superintendent's office here. And it would be only, given out with permission by the superintendent or myself, after, the building principals had approved the process or the purchase. And the person using the card would have to fill out, there's a form at the back that they understand that they've read the policies and procedures and they agree. And, then there would be a tracking. The basically what happens is it's meant to be paid right off the bat. So when somebody used the card, they would take and pay with it, they'd get a receipt, they'd return it to our office at the business office, and we would do the process of getting it paid. So it needs to be turned around within a month's time to be paid. It's not something that lingers on and on. It's meant to be, paid for right off the bat. So that would, this, process to it, and it explains in the procedural manual how we do that. But, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I don't mean to go on and on about it, but it has worked in other districts very successfully, and I've used it, and it is a great tool, and it kind of helps alleviate the stress of having our staff have to put things on their credit cards or administration as well.
So basically, it's a company credit card, and there'd be one.
Yes.
Just one.
And you can do like, it could be Auburn Public Schools. So we wouldn't maybe put somebody's name on it so that
Right.
Dr. Chamberlain and myself or a building principal could use it. It would be like a generic type of card, but we would probably keep, only have one. A lot of districts do it with different departments, and I feel like that gets a little bit,
Yeah.
a little too much. So I would keep it held in our office, and we would use it at times, like just for what I was saying, for example, like, going for hotel accommodations, airplane accommodations. If there's something that says, we need this right away, but they won't take a credit card, then, okay.
So when they won't take a PO.
So then people don't have to
I'm
use.
sorry, I said that wrong. PO, thank you.
So then
Dr.
people
Jim.
don't have to use their own credit card and wait to get reimbursed.
Right. I think it's a perfect idea.
Yeah, sounds great to me.
It'll be very limited. If there's any way that we can continue to pay with a PO, we will continue to
Yes.
pay through
Yeah.
the PO system. It'll be only for those times when we really can't.
It's not to avoid the procurement laws. We'll continue to still follow 30B like we do for Massachusetts and procuring everything the proper way, but it would just be in that instance, those rare instances, because we do hit up against those and it becomes difficult.
I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I read through it. Definitely, it looks like you can put limits on it, and so it seems very controlled and.
Makes sense.
Fine, so, all right, any more discussion or questions on that?
No.
All right, let's seek a motion to approve.
A motion to approve and allow the business manager to move forward with applying for a district procurement card, which would be available for use for special circumstances and only with advanced approval from superintendent and business manager.
And I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for your support on that. Next, I provided in your packet a year-to-date budget report dated December 5th for your review. And along with that, I have a small listing of transfers between the same series and for your information in different series for which I'm seeking your approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have with regard to that.
Questions or comments?
It's good, as usual.
Yep. Thank you, Cecilia. All right, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the list of transfers dated December 5th, 2022, as presented by the business manager.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
All
you all.
right.
And that's the end of my report.
All right, thank you. Do we
Thank
need
you.
executive
We
session?
do not need executive session.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
A second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, good night, everyone. Good
Night.
Night.
Oh, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.